Hey everyone, we are live on MBA Waves. Welcome. My name is Eric Lucrezia, and as usual, I'm with my co-host, Bara Sapir. And today we have a special guest named Charles Bennett, who's also here in Paris with me, originally from Montreal, and he is a coach as well. And we're going to talk about soft skills in the world of 2022 with some crazy geopolitics going on in a we hope, post-pandemic, a lot of variables and how soft skills are more important than ever. So before we introduce Charles, I'm going to let Bara introduce herself. Hi, Bara.
Despite having two people from Paris, we are going to be doing this in English. So have no fear. I'm Bara Sapir. I'm with City Test Prep and with Mindflow. And I think this is a super interesting topic. And not only am I excited to learn, I know how applicable this is to not only what business applicants need, what you need professionally, it's just life stuff. So I think it's super valuable we're doing this. What else can I tell you? I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it's great to see both of you. And also, please, if you have questions or comments, put them in the sidebar. So put them in so we can answer them.
Yep. Thanks, Bara. And once again, my name is Eric Lucrezia, and I'm the founder of Candidate Coach. So it's a boutique admissions consulting firm, and I work with people applying to MBA programs and masters all over the world. And MBA Waves was founded just over a year ago. So we're on, I think, our 53rd episode. So we're super excited, 53rd, to have with us today. Also joining us live from Paris is Charles Bennett. Charles, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Eric. Thank you, Bara. I'm Charles Bennett, here based in Paris, success coach for charlesbennettcoaching.com. I've been doing this for about 4 years, which is something that I absolutely enjoy. My mantra has always been the goal to watch my clients succeed. I've had the opportunity for the past few years to work as a coach for ESSEC, and also working with other companies, working in-house to help leadership, change management, and all sorts of things. So really accompany people to find their purpose and to find their best self. So I feel I'm blessed today to sit down with you all and to have this discussion about soft skills, which is huge and rich, and I think we're gonna be able to help a lot of people today.
Thanks, Charles. And so since MBA Waves is all about MBAs, this is kind of in the context of MBA programs, business school, international business, and so forth. And soft skills is very much a topic that we've been talking about at pretty much every MBA program on earth, right? So just to start us off, what do we mean by soft skills vis-a-vis hard skills? So you can take that away.
Charles, it's all you.
Oh, it's all me. Sorry. Well, hard skills are really about things that are, I guess, more linked immediately to the job. If you're in a software engineer, you need to know about, computers. You need to know about specifics. If you're a doctor, you need to know about medicine. The soft skills is really something that's intangible. It's something that you can't really quantify, yet it's the one element that really separates individuals and candidates. And today, now more than ever, there are a lot of people out there who apply for various positions who have all the skills that they believe, the hard skills they have, but the soft skills are something that they recognize immediately. Hence why it's something that they need to work on. But sometimes what it is they don't know that they don't have those soft skills, or that they need to work on it more. So I think what's great about today's conversation is I see some people out there, whether they're students, whether they're professionals that are already working in various industries, they may realize that it may be an opportunity for them to sort of hone in and understand what they need to work on to be better and more competitive in their work, and to also land their dream position.
So let's just put it out there. What are some of the key soft skills that come to mind when we're thinking about MBAs? Like, anyone can answer this.
I would say definitely communication. Communication is really key. Being able to have a positive attitude, adaptability. I can't say more than adaptability after this pandemic is extremely important, because we went into a situation where things were changing every day, and being able to land and go into a workforce where you're going to have to be able to change and be flexible. Those are skills that employers are looking for today in candidates. And I think now, if you're working for a company for many years, companies are really becoming more demanding of people that are being able to adapt and flexible.
Absolutely,
And
especially since things have changed so rapidly. Like every week or every day, we have something different going on, and we have to adjust to a new situation. Sorry, Barrett, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, you know what I'd also add to that is two key things: listening, like really taking the time to listen. And I think that that's a soft skill, right? I mean, we all know how to hear, but to listen. And then also eye contact, right? I think that the eye contact, body language, being aware of space and attunement to somebody else, I think is also important. Would you consider those soft skills as well, Charles?
Absolutely, absolutely, Barry. You're totally on point when it comes to listening. Is probably, you're right, the thing that we take for granted sometimes, because everybody believes that if I'm shaking my head, I'm listening. But are you really? Are you just showing me that you've heard the words? And are you, if you're not understanding, are you reiterating what I'm saying? So you make sure you understand, because I think so often when whether it's in a meeting, whether we're on one-on-one discussion, sometimes the importance of showing, so being aware and mindful of what someone is saying is such a gift you're giving back to a person, whether it's someone your boss or whether it's the person that you're managing. People want to be heard, and they want to feel that what they're saying has value. And if it's just quite dismissive, or if you're, I mean, sometimes it could be as simple as even not responding to an email. I can't tell you how much in France you find people send a message and 2 weeks later they get a response. That's also a form of soft skills, I believe, because too often people just want what they're saying to feel important. They want to feel validated. They want to feel that their point of view has been recognized. And I find that there are many leaders out there who miss the mark in terms of being able to recognize the importance of, like you said, listening, recognizing, taking heed, and being empathetic to what their teams are trying.
To give a little context to what you're saying, as far as like the why, I think the risk when that is ignored, these kind of soft skills of listening and making sure people feel validated and heard and so forth, is that they become detached, they become less productive, and then your bottom line suffers. So I think companies more and more in the last 5-10 years have really realized that, and that has come through in what MBA programs are delivering in terms of making sure their graduates come out with these soft skills really polished. I came across this interesting list when I was looking up soft skills that are most important in 2022, and I just wanted to share them for you. I'm just going to run through them kind of quickly. It's only 6 items, right? So first one was leadership, which is kind of an obvious one, right? In any company, in the MBA program, leadership is a very core skill, an important thing you want to come out with. But as Charles also mentioned already, the second one was flexibility or adaptability. In a constantly changing situation, a lot of unknowns. That's a really key, important one. Third one, critical thinking. Being able to cipher through what is fake news, what is real, and so forth before we start a panic in the office or in the community. The fourth one was being tech savvy, which most people these days are, but sometimes I'm surprised, especially when I meet someone from younger generations that still doesn't know how to use Zoom or some of these tech, these software that have become so commonplace in our lives since 2020. The fifth was communication and emotional intelligence. Being able to, I would say, not only read people, but the way you communicate, the way you deliver information, that it's going to be taken well and that you're going to have the right impact. I mean, that's a huge topic, emotional intelligence. I think we should have a whole episode on. And the fourth is creativity and innovation. And I think that speaks to problem solving, that we have like an ever-changing environment, particularly with COVID, but also things like the war going on now with Russia and Ukraine, that may present situations that we haven't dealt with before, and to come up with new ideas and to innovate and how to take it to the next step, or how to get around it, or how to continue doing business, or how to make a change and still, have the company stay afloat, right? So a lot of those are the 6 that I came up with in my research.
I like to, well, something that I saw in my research is being a creative problem solver. Those two together, because often we think creative means being artistic, but creative problem solver can mean often finding solutions in manners that are cost efficient. For example, if you have a smaller budget, which a lot of companies are going through right now, have to tighten the way. What can you do to cut the corners and be creative and following away. Maybe it may be in training. Maybe you have to find ways of finding someone in-house that has a qualification to save the money from your coaching budget. There are often ways that we need to kind of be a creative problem solver in situations and not just say, I don't know, but find ways and having discussions to try to find those solutions. So I'd like to add that being a creative problem solver is a soft skill that is invaluable as well.
I think also with being creative and the leadership, it's also empowering other people to be creative and have the leadership, right? So helping other people to feel comfortable to contribute their ideas, and creating an environment that promotes that. I think that's also super important, especially in these days, right? And for the past 2-3 years, so many of us have just been on Zoom. So what happens when you bring that to the office and all of a sudden you're dealing with body language and just, the way effects that people have, like people have different personal effects. So it's a super interesting, important thing, not only thinking about our own abilities and emotional intelligence, but how do we help others with theirs, especially in positions of leadership.
So you're pretty much to be able to empower these people.
Absolutely.
And give them the opportunity to find their voice, because you're totally right. Sometimes when you are the person that has the voice and has the power, you sometimes, if you're doing all the talking and giving all the ideas, you're not allowing those other people to bloom and to showcase their creativity. And I found a lot of when I've spoken to some of my clients over the past 4 years, sometimes they feel that their creativity is stifled, that they're not able to showcase who they are, what they bring to the table. So hence they don't communicate at all. So I believe you're totally right. That it's important to create an environment that empowers, that allows those lost voices to come to the forefront. And I think now more than ever, you're totally right. If you're individuals who are forced, but you're in a situation where you're working from home and you don't have that opportunity to really be present, you have to kind of bring yourself out there and really show your place, to put your footmark that you are there and that you have a point of view.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, here we are in 2022. It's over 2 years since the pandemic forced us to change in so many ways, including conducting business and education remotely. Like, first of all, we're not out of the woods yet. And as much as I hope this won't be the case, we could be facing another wave or maybe monkeypox or who knows. But beyond that, COVID has accelerated a growing trend since before COVID of working and studying remotely. So I wanted to talk about the importance of improving soft skills, how it's even greater now, particularly when you're starting a new job, right? Especially considering that the great resignation that we so much talk about. I've had so many friends who started a new job in the last year or so, and from the very first day, they've been working remotely. And yet they have a very difficult time learning about the office culture and how to function, how to use the software and the other tools, and like who to go to if you have some kind of problem, right? It's not like you can just ask your neighbor in the next cubicle. So what are some strategies here? What are some useful soft skills to make this transition to distance working and studying easier while still connecting to people? What do you guys think?
One thing that comes to mind for me is that being curious, like not being freaked out, but actually being curious and being transparent about not knowing and curious about what is the culture going to be. If there's a lot of people that haven't been in the office, that culture might not necessarily even exist yet, right? So I think that asking questions or creating opportunities on Zoom to create some sort of, even, the old icebreaker, the old ways of getting to know other people who are in your cohort, I think would be a valuable tool. Just brainstorming here. What do you think?
I would piggyback on that with you, because I guess working remotely should not equal being in the background, so to speak, or to disappear. I think it's working remotely or working from home for some people has given them permission to feel that they don't have to exist, that they can just sort of hide behind the computer and not make efforts. but I believe that the effort has to be even more so.
Yeah.
I believe that there has to be even more presence. There has to be opportunities to really connect. I think there is a strong element that you still have to stay in your business context, business hat. But I think that there has to be moments of, like you said, the icebreaker, having discussions, finding the common ground with the people that you work with, and not allow the days, weeks, months, and past where you're only discussing work, but not connecting on a human level. I find there's a lot of people that are sometimes in management who miss the opportunity to really get to understand the psychology of the people they work with by asking questions. Like you said, that goes back to the curiosity. It goes back to showing interest. It goes back to really making someone feel that what and who they are is important and their contribution is there. So I would agree with you on that, Bara, in that respect.
Yeah, I love everything. I love everything that you're saying, Charles. I also want to reiterate that all of these things that we're talking about show up in the MBA's application, and even how they're taking tests, right? So we're talking about this outside of the context, but I often say on these episodes, like, the way we do some things are the way that we do all things.
Yes.
So the way that you present yourself in your application, in your essays, in your interview, these are all skills that, yeah, they're going to be great and they're super important. And I love what you said, Charles, about, you don't want to be in the background just because you're behind a computer screen at home, right? You get to have presence, and your presence could also be inviting and inspiring to the people that you work with. And we do want to know about the humanity that's between all of us, especially because we've just been through and are going through such a difficult time with the pandemic, and going through such a horrible time, at least in the United States right now. Things are kind of cray, right? Things are kind of weird right now in the United States. And so, we don't necessarily want to ignite a flames, because we don't want people to get upset if we have different political viewpoints. But we all want love. We all want acceptance. We all, like Charles said, we all want to be heard, right? We all want to be understood and feel important. And so we want to present ourselves in our applications. We want to think critically out of the box on our test, right? On the GMAT or GRE. So these are all like it's all this like fractal, right? They're like these ways that we move through the world that are going to show up professionally, personally, in our relationships, romantic and friendships. So these are all great skills to pick up.
Something that you said really, really struck. It's, obviously you want to keep it professional, but incorporating some things and being even more present than you were before, having even more, utilizing even more of your soft skills, things you can do. Because if you're starting a new job and you don't know anybody, you don't have those people to lean on. So you might want to take the initiative yourself to reach out to people and set up kind of coffee dates, like virtual coffee dates, just like 10, 15 minutes to kind of replace what you would normally do by the water cooler or the break room or whatever. Or if you don't totally feel comfortable doing that, or if you're getting some resistance, maybe even talk to your manager, talk to the boss, and see if he or she can set that up to sort of program them so everyone's kind of doing them, and it's not just about you because you're the new person. But if you're the manager, as a leader, it's a good thing to do. Another thing, a funny thing I heard from a friend, they set up a shared playlist on Spotify so they could all kind of listen to the same music. They'd have kind of that thing to share. So you're not listening to Megadeth probably, but something that you can share in the background while you're getting work done. And it's just something that you share and to talk about later, perhaps. Another thing is kind of silly. It sounds a little bit juvenile, but like starting off each meeting with like a show and tell from home.
I was just thinking that. I was thinking, oh my God, this reminds me of second and third grade when we had show and tell.
Totally. They would have like 1 or 2 minutes to share something from your house. Like, oh, I got this mug from my friend's cookie shop in Manhattan, Schmackeries, or whatever. Again,
or even I've heard of people even telling about what they just made for lunch. Like, look at this, I made this beautiful dish and how I did it. Or look at this cake that my wife made, she did with, like getting into the element of it all, because often that's what it is. And that shows character. it shows connecting. And I think that that's what we're all looking for. Sometimes we put these barriers and they're invisible because I think some people at work don't know that they're putting these barriers, these invisible barriers of not allowing someone in. But the moment you allow that laughter, that kind of connecting point, that silliness, people, they love that. And that's what they're searching for. Everybody's looking for that little bit of moment of non-perfection, that little bit of moment of craziness and zaniness in that 1 second right before you go into a meeting, so that it allows people to have that fluidity.
You also said something important, like before you go into the meeting, right? A good tip, I think, is try to be the first one in on the meeting. Like the virtual room is created, be one of the first people there with the camera on, and says people trickle in, you can grab and have that little side conversation for a couple of minutes before the main event begins. It's another way. It also shows that you're on time and that you care. So it just a lot of pluses in doing that. Yeah, good ideas, guys. I don't know, like, what do you guys think? What soft skills that you find are most lacking in the corporate world these days?
I would have to say right away, communication. I believe that we are in a world that we're all on our phones. We're all, like if we're on our laptops, we're sending messages to our colleagues via email, but they sit right next to us. I think that we're afraid of picking up the phone when there's a conflictual situation with a colleague because we just don't want to go there because it's too much work. I think there's a fear factor of people that are just not good at communicating, and it impedes so much, because if you can't pick up a phone when you have an issue or a challenge with a colleague and you're going to spend weeks going back and forth, you're really not going to really finalize what the challenge is, versus some things can be cleaned up within 2 minutes versus you're spending weeks emails back and forth. I think there's that element of communication that is missing. And I think the challenge is we think we're connected because we think, oh my God, of course I'm connected. I'm on this, I'm on that, I'm on that. But is that real connection?
Right.
Yeah, I'd say I would totally agree with that communication, and it's a two-way street. And it's what I brought up in the beginning. It's about, I feel like the listening is not as present in the sort of corporate experiences that I have. Like, are people really listening to me? Like, do they get what I'm saying? And, I think like one technique for me to model good listening is to repeat the things that someone has said to me. Like, let me just clarify. I just want to make sure I understood everything you said so that we can proceed. Like, I think that repeating things, but I also think that there's a lack of, I think that the computer screens and like the lack of connection has also made people less invested, or like less engaged. They take less responsibility. There's this, people don't quickly say like, I messed up. I have let me fix this. Let me see how I can do this. I think that that's something that people need to work on, understanding that mistakes are opportunities for growth. And it also shows character, to use your word, Charles, right? Like, the more character that we can show, the richer, deeper person we are. And then people actually are, it's like a magnet. Like, people do want to come towards us because they feel safe, right? Like, we want to create safety between the people that we work with and trust, so that you kind of create this web, this culture, which I think is important.
You spoke about listening and being engaged. I mean, already pre-COVID, right? At board meetings, at conferences, everyone's on their phone. They're like half there anyway. Now take it to the next level with remote working, and I'm not against it, right? But if there's like a conference, I was at a conference 2 weeks ago, and I realized I'm folding laundry and like making a sandwich and like answering emails at the same time.
What kind of sandwich?
It was turkey and cheese with mustard.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you the rest. Anyway, but yeah, it's just kind of the engagement definitely suffers, as you just said, just to repeat what you said.
I wanted to add what you were saying before. I think by actually, like you said, Bara, by making that effort, you can be a model for success to your peers. People will, I think, respect people who say, you know what, I made a mistake.
Or I don't know.
I don't know. I have the answer, but let me get answer for you. People respect that than people trying to BS, and coming up with a story. It's so much more admirable to say, you know what, I don't know.
Mhm.
And everybody respects because everybody's been there. So if you're able to say you don't know, it's not like you're not a loser, you're not a failure, you're just showing that you're human. And I believe that is such a powerful thing that we miss out on by trying to always seem like we know it all.
Right. Like, I don't know, but I'm going to find out, like
Mm.
the second half of that is, I think, important too, that you're going to make the effort, or you're going to somehow we'll figure out the answer.
Or you're going to find the person. I don't know, but I know the exact person to ask.
Yeah.
And I can connect you with them, or I'll find out for you. Yeah.
Like, being solution oriented, I think, is primordial, but taking ownership of mistakes or acknowledging when you don't know something, I don't think anyone expects anyone to know everything, right? But knowing how to research and being proactive or reactive, at least, is definitely good soft skills to keep in mind. Listen, we sort of alluded to this before. I spoke about the war in Ukraine and so forth. Like, another way that doing business and studying has been affected by some new realities in 2022 has to do with the war in Ukraine. And, how do you not harm or offend colleagues and clients alike when tons of multinationals are pulling out of Russia to support the Ukraine war? But let's be honest, not everyone, or some people, companies, and countries are effectively supporting the war, or at least unfazed by it, seemingly. In the end, it seems like people are picking teams, maybe. As a result, we live in very delicate times. And so I wanted to bring this up. I think it's very interesting because it's very current, and it's a major challenge. I mean, the war is having a global impact in like every industry. Like, what soft skills are essential to keep your workplace running smoothly, to keep you sane and healthy, and people around you when there are definitely difficult decisions to make? What do you guys think about that?
This is hard.
Yeah,
This has been really challenging for me, in the sense, not so much the war, because I'm not dealing with that. I'm not dealing with that particular challenge. I'm dealing with the pandemic challenge, and how people have chosen to get vaccinated, to not get vaccinated, to wear masks, and the mandates, and Texas. And, how do I deal with clients that live in Texas? How do I deal with clients that feel very differently about the politics? I've definitely erased things off of Facebook and conversations, and haven't brought it up. And, even with colleagues, who I hear their talking points, and I'm like, wow, I think that might be right off Fox News, which is something that I don't necessarily watch. So I find that this is a really interesting time, because I'm a New Yorker living in California. And so I tend to be a little bit more confrontational than other people. So I can't answer this question. It's on you guys. I want to hear what you have to say. I need to learn.
I think I'm going to add, I think, Eric, we talked about this earlier. I believe when we're getting into the political arena in the workplace, I think there's a point where there's a level of empathy that needs to be brought up, but I think there has to be, what do we agree upon? So we agree upon that we don't want to see children being killed in Russia or in Ukraine. So that's our, we don't want people dying. We don't want to see people suffering, irrespective of the fact we may not agree with a certain country's politics or their president, etc. We still need to find that common ground in the workplace, so that at the end of the day, I even if I don't agree with something, I still want to see, what do we agree upon, and let's stay on that. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of things we're not going to agree upon, right? And there's people we work with that have different political views, and we still have to work with them.
So Alfredo, it's Alfredo or red sauce. You don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not going to agree with everybody that I work with, and I can think in that respect, we have to agree to disagree, but also respect whatever that person's. Even if in my heart I think, are you kidding me? But at the same time, still be respectful of what my colleagues' points of view, which is not an easy endeavor.
Breathe, right? You have to sometimes take a step back, and just pause, and not dive into the emotional response. It's, I think, creating that pause of just, okay, because not everyone is going to be able to not get inflamed about particular ideas. And I think that in the workplace, or what?
Or emotional, because I think at the end of the day,
Yeah.
topics can bring out such emotion. I'm like you said, the shooting in Texas was and this is a talking book, but it was so it's effective. I'm not in the U.S., but I have to say I can't understand how we can't find a common ground on that. I couldn't just like that. That's such a powerful thing of seeing children be killed. It's such an emotional thing. I don't see how that two people at work would not be able to agree on what the solutions are for that.
Sure. We were talking about the politics that are surrounding this another mass shooting or the war. I mean, I'm thinking more about the war in Ukraine, I guess, based in Europe. I mean, both are horrible, different. But in terms of like the war, like some things I think about in terms of the people that you work with, right? Learning about your colleagues who may be directly impacted by the war. Like maybe they have family there because whether they're Ukrainian, Russian, or another country that's directly affecting the war, and also realizing that they and their families are most likely not directly responsible or involved in the war, right? And being able to have empathy for people, whatever country they come from, right? There's a very small select group of people who are the ones that are driving the situation, and it's most likely not any of your colleagues. So taking stock of who's around you, because you have to work with these people. Also, finding out what your company's policy is on speaking about these things, like maybe like a no social media thing. Like you might, depending on what country you work in, what kind of job protections there are, you may be at risk. Your job may be at risk if you're tweeting or posting things. Be careful, find out what the policy is. But not just about just sharing your opinion, but also in terms of who the company is doing business with. Are they going to, if we're talking about like, I don't know, Starbucks, McDonald's, and like hundreds of other companies, I don't know how many in total, but have literally pulled out of Russia entirely. Netflix is another big one, and so on. What is the policy? Who are we no longer doing business with? Who are we doing business with instead? Who's continuing to do business with a particular country that might mean as a result we don't want to any longer? Some things to think about. But again, Bara hit it on the head earlier, listening. And that's a big part of it. In addition to that, learning about your partners as a company. What partners does the company have? What clients, so forth, suppliers are you using? It's all about being diplomatic. Taking a path of diplomacy is always a good idea. And this is a soft skill that I think is in high demand in 2022. And at the end of the day, I think also it's worth taking stock of your own values, right? Is this a place where you want to continue working based on what the realities are in that company? Like what are their values? Is it a match with yours? If it's no longer a match, you might want to think about making a change, particularly if you're working in media, government, energy sector, the military, or some kind of arms suppliers. Like these are industries that have some of the highest impact or that may come up as a question for you. So just some things to think about. And if you have to make a change, doing so carefully, that you don't burn any bridges, and you finding your exit strategy so it's not an abrupt departure, if at all possible. Anyway, these are some things I've been thinking about, and I'm really happy to have the opportunity to exchange on this with Charles, with you guys. Anything else to add about soft skills? We're about 30 minutes in.
I'm curious about how, and Charles, I think you might have some ideas about this. How can people develop their soft skills? Because we're saying, oh, listen, do this, but it's building a habit is actually creating new paths of moving through life, right? And soft skills are, some of them are taught, some of them are modeled, but what are some, or Eric, you might know, like, what are some ways that our listeners can consider taking on new habits or bolstering the ones that they currently have to be better with these soft skills? What would you say are some places or ways that they can do that? I've got a couple ideas, but I want to hear what you have to say.
I mean, so first of all, I'll say that when you're applying for an MBA program, you're probably at least 23, 24, 25, 26 at a minimum, mid-20s, right? There's an expectation that you have a certain level of soft skills acquired and refined already. And that would be something that would be demonstrated through your essays, through your interview, through your references. Letters of reference, I think, speaks a lot to soft skills, right? They're basically someone else speaking on your accountability, your character, your reliability, and so forth. So that's a soft skill component of the application itself. And then while at the MBA program or even a master's, that is usually almost always a big part of what you're doing, either directly as a course or indirectly as some kind of student experiences or workshops and so forth that come along the way to make sure everyone is brought up to that same level. And in terms of habits, as Bara mentioned, I think they say it takes about 30 days before an activity or something becomes a habit. So, considering MBA is going on for a year to 2 years, there's a good chance that you can acquire and permanently adopt some new soft skills. But since Charles is a coach who deals with this a lot directly, I know when he was brought in at ESSEC a couple of times, he worked on soft skills quite a bit. So how would you train these in general?
I mean, I did a lot of some exercises with the students, so role plays that I found were helpful. And I found by doing that, because I think soft skills, people don't often know what they don't have. And sometimes it's about how do you identify the ones you need to work on more? And how do you make sure that those soft skills that are the most important are ready for when you start your MBA, or when you start a job where they're on the first day, they're expected you to have these. And it's a very good question. I'm not sure if there's a ready-made answer right away to say, okay, I'm ready, I've got all the skills ready, or I know which ones I need to work on, because there could be 8 or 9 and maybe only 3 that are really necessary to have in the first 6 months to really be at the top of the forefront. So that would be my answer to that question.
Yeah, I think that the idea of role playing, I think, is super valuable and important, even though it feels kind of weird to role play sometimes. We can even do it with our friends or colleagues about, here's a situation, right? How would you best do it? But having a coach there that could actually reflect back what's working and what's not working. I sometimes say to students, like, you can study with a buddy, but don't assume that they know everything about the GMAT, right? And it's the same thing with wanting to learn a skill like soft skills. Like, don't assume that your buddy is going to be the paragon of the soft skill world. So I do think, I know in the Bay Area, there's lots of communication workshops, and there's even like nonviolent communication, which I think has some really interesting tools and ways of communicating, not pointing fingers to someone, but just noticing something in yourself and taking responsibility. I work with some of my clients around that, believe it or not, because some of the issues that come up if they have got conflicts at work. But I do think that practice, it's really about practice in how you do it. And I love giving that timeline, Eric, about when you're in school, you're actually having these opportunities to do it. But I don't know if people are being herded to understand the most effective way of doing it. Like, I think that you'll pick it up if you're astute, but I think it's the practice and the feedback that we get from people around us. Like, I've gotten plenty of feedback, people telling me that, wow, Bara, you're confrontational. And then I say, well, actually, like, I'm just very clear. but I do think that hearing that it's that the way it lands, that's what they say in San Francisco, the way it lands for people is that it's confrontational. It has allowed me to take a step back to soften my language with people. So it is hearing the feedback and knowing that I'm getting feedback so that I can be more effective.
Listening, as you said earlier. Yeah.
Yes. And knowing also, maybe there's you can be in so many different scenarios where you'll have to sort of go in one and use one soft skill and then go in another one and use another one more. You have to, it's so fluid. You have to sort of be able to dance through it, because sometimes you're right. Sometimes in some situations, Bara, you have to be direct. And in other situations, you may have to be less and use something else. So it's about kind of recognizing which ones and kind of adjusting. That's why we go back to the adaptability element of soft skills.
Listen, guys, this has been really interesting. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up for today. Charles, thank you so much for joining us. This is the second time we've had you, and it's been awesome.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you both for having me. It was lovely. Thank you.
Lovely seeing you again.
Great.
Thanks to everyone in the audience, and be sure to join us next week for MBA Waves. We are doing a spotlight on William and Mary School of Business, how to maximize your MBA experience. So don't miss next week. We'll be excited to have your questions, and you get to interact with some people working at William and Mary. Again, the whole programming schedule is on mbawaves.com. And if you'd like to suggest any episodes that we do in the future, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And we are signing out. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.